Introduce yourself, Jonathan.
My name's Jonathan Simmons from Jonathan Spoons. One of my mentors is John McLeod, who makes wooden stuff.
And Spurtles.
And yeah, Spurtles, just a stick. And I like to play practical jokes on him. So one time I brought a friend of mine from my hometown to the show in Philadelphia. And I was in his booth, and we were chatting, and I was introducing my friend. And he was concerned about people copying his designs. And just kind of as a joke, he accused me of knocking off his designs, which of course I never did. So it put a bug under my, when I went home, he was telling me about this new product he had, which was called a bagel hugger. And what it did was it had flexible sides so you could hold the bagel while you cut it. So I went home that night and I made one of my own design and brought it to the show the next day. And I put it in my booth at $8. His was $11. I got a buyer friend of mine to go down and tell him that I had one. So she went down there and said, oh, Jonathan has one of these. And John says, he does not. And he had told me earlier he had patents on this, he had trademarked it, he had copyrights, and nobody's going to steal this design. So my friend said, oh yeah, and his is only $8. No, it's not. So he sent June, a woman who worked for him, down to my booth. Now, this is one of my biggest customers at the time. So, you know, I was playing this up, and June came in my booth and said, well, is there anything you want to show me? And I showed her all the things that I had new. And then I showed her, and here's my bagel snugger. And she said, oh, John's not going to like this one. And I said, well, it's just a joke. So she went back to the booth, and all she said to him was, yeah, he's got one. And so I clued in all the craftspeople around what was happening. And I'm watching down the aisle, and here he's coming down the aisle, and he's walking with his head cocked sideways, and he's got steam coming out his ears. And he walks into my booth, and he reaches over, and he squeezes the thing. And he says, you're going to have patent trouble with this one. And he's like, beet red, and he's just ready to explode. And I'm like, oh man, I've gotten too far this time. I'm like, John, it's a joke, it's a joke. And he walks out of the booth and he goes, "Rah!" And he grabs my throat. So then later, this whole thing, it was really upsetting. I mean, it was really, so later I kind of waited till things died down a little. I went up to his booth and I sat at his feet, you know, and listened to his stories a little bit. And then he says, well, you know, kind of serves me right, because I put condoms in Bolstad's jewelry boxes. Now, this was back when condoms were not advertised on TV at that time. And then later he said, that's what I like about Jonathan. He doesn't take these wholesale shows so seriously.